in Ireland for an out-of-work League of Ireland manager?
Yeah, bits and bobs of everything. If my example is to go by, to be honest with you, Nathan, I'd be.
You were a full-time manager with Galway.
Yeah, I suppose I had been the advertising sales manager in the Leinster Leader newspaper in Kildare. Actually, was my previous job before I left. And after winning the first division with Wexford, I sat down with Mick Wallace and we decided that we'd make it a full-time position. So that was a big commitment. I remember being down in Ferrycarrig Park, kind of the week that I'd made the decision, we just happened to be playing against Dundalk, and Stephen Kenny kind of almost tried to talk me out of making the move into full-time football, and I can see why now. Well, look, it changes your mindset when your livelihood, it's all well and good. Obviously, you always want to win and you always want to do well, but when your actual livelihood depends on what happens on a Friday night, it's a whole different world. So it is. And while things had went, look, you're diving headfirst into full-time football management on the back of the most amazing season you could have had. We were 33-1 at the beginning of that year to win the league. We won the league with 3 games to go. You think this football management thing is the greatest thing since sliced bread when you're in that kind of mindset. But look, that changes very quickly when you see the other side of it as well, so it does.
And when you start out at Wexford, which is a low enough rung of the ladder at the time, you're in Division 1, are you like a 15-year-old going to England, starting out with the dream that this could end up as me as manager of the Republic of Ireland, or me as manager of Liverpool, that in 20 years' time this can take me anywhere? Or were you more realistic in your ambitions?
No, very, very much so. And to be honest with you, because of football management and because age is not really a major factor in how good of a go, there's probably still a sense of that. I probably still think I can achieve the sun, moon and stars, and probably still think that I can end up managing my country, really. I mean, I'm 36, I've had 7.5 years League of Ireland management. I'm out of work at the moment, but you'd be hoping to get back in, hopefully maybe somewhere sooner rather than later, and you've still got, potentially 20, 25 years of football management in front of you. I think it's interesting you bring it up, because I know we were kind of going to touch on it possibly later anyway. Keith Long obviously has signed a new contract at Bohemians, and there was kind of maybe a little bit of surprise around Keith signing a full-time contract at Bows, and there might have been bigger teams or bigger budgets maybe of teams sniffing around him. Like, Keith, to the best of my knowledge, unless the scenario has changed, Keith has a full-time job. So that's got a massive effect on Keith's decision making. The Bohemians job will suit him down to the ground, and I would say Keith Long probably knows that there would have been an opportunity potentially to take on full-time management at another club if he hadn't signed a new contract. But I'd say he maybe is maybe thinking about it and maybe doesn't want full-time management.
So, and if looking at it 7.5 years in, and I guess been somewhat burnt by what happened at Galway United, like, it doesn't seem to have dimmed your ambition, but I do just wonder now, if you were looking at potential opportunities and potential jobs, like, you look at League of Ireland right now, like, what are the clubs where actually you would think, that is a full-time job that really you can make a success of it, aside from Dundalk, Cork, Shamrock Rovers? Like, is Pats, Derry, which, breaking news, Kenny Shields, Derry have just announced they have parted ways with Kenny Shields, which is no great surprise, I don't think, to anyone after 3 seasons in charge. Like, how do you weigh it up that this is a full-time job rather than a part-time job?
Yeah, I suppose you have to go in with your eyes completely wide open. This might sound a strange thing to say, but again, all these decisions, I can imagine Keith, when he was making his decision over the last week or two, these decisions are not one person making a decision. It's, you've got your family, you've potentially got a wife, you've potentially got kids, and all those kinds of things have got to be factored into it as well. And to be honest with you, getting sacked is the worst thing that can happen to a football manager. I've got sacked, I've come through the other side of it. I'm still not, it's not the end of the world. I'm still standing, financially.
Does it feel like the end of the world?
No, I don't think it really does.
I guess it doesn't come out of the blue. Like, you got to have a sense when results aren't going right, and you hear the rumours that you get a couple of weeks to sort of mentally prepare yourself.
Absolutely. And again, mentally prepare your family. Like, I'm a big boy, I can kind of take it on the chin, but you would, I know this sounds a strange thing to be saying, but you would be saying on a Friday morning, maybe I would have had maybe a month of it where results weren't going well and it was starting to build, and you would be saying on a Friday morning to your wife, leaving the house, just to let you know, if we get a bad result tonight, we could be receiving bad news in the morning. And that's That's a strange scenario to be wrapping your head around with and feeling comfortable with, you know.
You don't need to answer this question, but when you get fired from a club mid-season, do you get paid off?
So look, it's very much horses for courses. It really, really is down to the contract that you negotiate, and nearly probably more so down to how ethical the club is. And I have to give Galway the absolute, highest of praise in that regard. I had a contract in place, and there was no attempts to kind of do me out of that side of things. So that helped, Nathan. That definitely did help from that side of things. All right, yeah.
There's loads more I want to touch on with that. Johnny Ward is fully mic'd up, of course, one of those hardcore Galway United supporters all over the forums with his secret names, putting pressure on the manager. Isn't that it, Johnny?
No, that's not it at all. I'm a journalist. I only use forums sparingly nowadays, but no, it was because I was friendly with Shane. That was very tough when he lost his job, and no improvement has been made on the pitch at least since. And obviously then you see Ger Little losing his job at Sligo, Kenny Shields lost his job, Liam Buckley lost his job, all in the last few weeks. And I think the piece that he had in the paper as well, he touched on it there, just the family, the individual can understand that he's going to be in for a rough ride in management or in sport, but the family, I think, and even Stephen Kenny talking about when we interviewed him here a week or two ago about how his family lived in 4 jurisdictions. Like, people don't focus on that at all. Like, I would, even at my stage of life, I'd be very wary of moving like willy-nilly, and for you to do that with your kids, it's a tough game. But
and we never talk about that because we'd Ronan O'Gara at our roadshow down in Limerick a couple of weeks ago. Right, he mentioned, everybody's talking about O'Gara coming back to Munster, and I was saying, well, maybe actually having gone to France and New Zealand, it's opened his eyes to the rest of the world of rugby, and there's many great jobs out there rather than just the dream of Munster and Ireland. And he said, well, a lot's going to depend on my family. Like, that is at some stage going to become the priority in my decision making, as what's best for my kids. Where do I want them to go to school? I want them to go to the one secondary school for their entire 5-6 years. And actually, in a way, we don't talk about that. We don't think about that. We presume that you're completely focused on your own career, and your family just have to go along with it.
Say you have 4 kids, there's a fair chance one of them will be like a lot quieter, or one of them will be maybe a bit diffident or whatever. And for he or she to move school when he may have just settled into a place and then move country to a completely alien environment, that can disrupt the family life, notwithstanding how your wife might deal with it as well. And I think they don't... they're in the background, like the wags, so to speak, but they have to put up with a lot with managers, certainly. Like, and you've been Wexford, Galway, back to Portlaoise now again with a young child. It's people just don't talk about that. We will come back to it in just a moment, but there's been a goal at Anfield, the first of the 3 o'clock kickoffs. Let's hear about it. Liverpool-Cardiff, Shane Pennington.
It's Liverpool 1, Cardiff 0, and Liverpool taking just 10 minutes to get in front in this game, courtesy of Mo Salah. It was a cross from the right-hand side from Alexander-Arnold. Wasn't dealt with by the Cardiff defence. Both Fabinho and also Mane had efforts towards goal that were blocked, but it fell nicely to Salah on the edge of the 6-yard box to the left-hand side, and he just smashed it into the empty net. It's Liverpool 1, Cardiff 0.
A 5th Premier League goal of the season for Mo Salah, a 4th in 6 days for the Egyptian, who's finding his best form again. It came at the end of an almighty goal-mouth scramble, and Liverpool have just hit the post in the past couple of seconds. A header from Virgil van Dijk, so they're all over Cardiff. The expectation was they would win this game quite comfortably, and right now it looks as though they're going to do just that. There's also been a goal at Vicarage Road between Watford and Huddersfield. Mike Lawrence.
Watford 1, Huddersfield Town 0. A superb solo goal from Roberto Pereira, leaving a number of Huddersfield defenders standing to slot the ball home on 9 minutes. The home side ahead here, Watford 1, Huddersfield 0.
Yeah, what a start to the season it has been for Roberto Pereira as well. The Argentinian winger has been outstanding so far. I think that is his 5th league goal as well, after 10 games, and Watford at home 1-0 in front against Huddersfield. The other 3 o'clock kickoff, Southampton against Newcastle, Fulham against Bournemouth, and Brighton against Wolves. The late game is Leicester against West Ham United. Gary Breen is still on the line as well. Gary, talking about that and I guess family and their role in your decision making as a professional footballer, was it a factor for you? Did you have to think about what's best, not just for me, but for everybody else around as well?
As a player, no, you kind of go where the best opportunity is for you as such for your career. But it's fascinating listening to Shane there, because he's giving you a personal insight that you don't normally associate. You just associate just a manager at a club and you just judge him by the results. But there is a knock-on effect. And even as a player, I certainly felt it, where your mum and dad would take a bit of stick at work if you had an indifferent, you played poorly at the weekend or you had a bad result. And some different characters can take it in different ways. It has a massive effect on people like that. And certainly now, talking to Shane there, if you have to move your family, when your family are settled in a certain part of the country, it's difficult to uproot them for what potentially might only be a year, and you can't keep moving around. It has a massive effect on their development and their own lives. And it always is a difficult one to a certain extent now, where I live now in England. If I was to go back into coaching, I think I'm limited in terms of I'm not going to move house. It's as simple as that. I'm not prepared to go up to north of England again and coach and invariably live in a hotel, because I think Shane's talking about the fact that he became full-time. But even when you're part-time as a manager, it's still a full-time job because you're thinking about it all the time. It may be full-time, part-time, the difference in terms of what you're paid. But in terms of your thought process, you're always thinking about it all the time. And to be away from your family, who are so important at times, when you need to go home and switch off at times, it's not easily done, but you need that network around you, and to commit to a club where you're invariably living in a hotel. And we're seeing it even at the top end of football with Jose Mourinho living out of a hotel, managing Manchester United, and his family's still in London. It's very difficult.
Yeah, Shane was staying in the equivalent of the Lowry Hotel in Galway when you were over there, weren't you? 5-star penthouse suite. It's the only way I'm moving.
The G Hotel, was it?
Yeah, exactly. Good plug. Good plug. Yeah. 53106 is the text number. We're live as always on a Saturday afternoon on all our social channels as well. Facebook.com/offtheball, YouTube.com/offtheball, and on Twitter on Periscope. So do leave any comments or any messages about what we're talking about the League of Ireland season, thoughts on your club, thoughts about the managerial merry-go-round that's going to happen over the next few weeks and it's happening right now, and also the weekend's Premier League games, because as it stands, Liverpool are going to go top of the Premier League, 1-0 up against Cardiff, and they are ripping them asunder time and time again as they go forward. A changed Liverpool as well, because Andy Robertson left on the bench, Alberto Moreno among the players coming into the side for Liverpool, and really watching the opening 20 minutes here, it could be any score.
Yeah, it's in terms of territory, it's one of the most lopsided games I've seen, and I think the big thing for Liverpool is Salah is just finding his touch again. The game midweek, I think, gave him a chance to play against weaker opposition, and he just needed a few goals. Didn't really look sharp. I thought he was lucky enough to keep his place the way he was playing, but just once he starts scoring goals, I think he'll probably start hitting form. It's kind of the last two games Liverpool have played, they've been insanely hot favourites, and it's kind of not a great spectacle in terms of watching this, because it's complete damage limitation from Cardiff. It looks like they could beat them 5 or 6-0 really. Not sure about Fabinho wearing gloves though. It's not that cold, is it? Not a big
it's
fan.
Absolutely Baltic.
That's not.
I'm going to Old Trafford tomorrow, and I've got my winter outfit out.
It's not
I've
cold.
Got my long johns. They're going on tomorrow without question.
It's 7 degrees, and if you're playing football in the sun, it's not cold. Shane, I don't know.
Have you been outside at all today?
I cycled here. That's why I was a little bit late.
Absolutely freezing.
It's not freezing.
It is most
7
definitely
degrees.
acceptable gloves playing football weather.
I'm always a bit wary of lads wearing gloves in weather that isn't really cold.
Oh, you're Mr. Martin O'Neill here, just because Matt Doherty wears gloves.
Yeah, I
You've got a disdain for players just because they wear gloves, just because they keep themselves warm.
When I went over and watched Coventry and Portsmouth there a few weeks ago, Ronan Curtis was wearing gloves. I'd say it was 15 degrees that night. I was like, here, And one of your former players, actually, Ronan Hale, was wearing them for Derry around the same time. I was like,
the one I can never understand is the fella who wears the gloves with the short sleeve jersey. That's always a very confusing one.
Well, you just want that little bit of freedom.
Optics.
In rather more serious news, the former England and Spurs manager Glenn Hoddle has been taken to hospital seriously ill after collapsing just before going on air with BT Sport this morning. He is 61, in fact today is his 61st birthday. The BT presenter Jake Humphrey says Hoddle was taken seriously ill at studios this morning. Obviously Glenn Hoddle, a true legend of the game, 53 caps for England. We will bring you any more news on that as it comes in, but obviously everyone wishes him the very best. So that news just in. So the latest scores in the Premier League: Liverpool still leading Cardiff by a goal to nil, Watford 1, Huddersfield 0, Southampton 0, Newcastle 0. Scoreless between Brighton and Wolves, and in the game between Fulham and Bournemouth. In fact, there has just been a goal in that match at Craven Cottage. Let's hear about it from Nigel Bidmead.
Fulham 0, Bournemouth 1. The visitors taking the lead from the penalty spot in the 13th minute. Callum Wilson burst into the box. He was fouled by Timothy Fosu-Mensah. The referee Andre Mariner pointed to the spot. Wilson himself took the spot kick down the middle, beating Sergio Rico, who's making his Premier League debut for Fulham. Wilson's 4th of the season. Fulham 0, Bournemouth 1.
Yeah, and speaking of managerial changes, I'm not sure how much longer the Fulham manager Jokanovic is going to last if they end up losing that game at home to Bournemouth. We'll talk about that and Fulham's style of play in a couple of moments. But let's see what's happening at the Amex Stadium. Brighton against Wolves. Decent start to the season for both these clubs. Andrew Cheel.
Brighton 0, Wolves 0. Wolves looking much the better of the two sides, starting much better. They've had 3 or 4 corners already, plenty of possession, 1 or 2 dangerous breaks down the right hand side. Doherty seeing a lot of the ball from the advanced wing back position, 1 excellent cross. Jimenez stole possession off of his teammate Helder Costa, who looked in a good position to shoot. Brighton for the most part relying on a fast break from time to time. Shane Duffy though did get in 1 header which was way too high. Brighton 0, Wolves 0.
Another goal at the game between Watford and Huddersfield, I think, at Vicarage Road. Watching this one is Mike Lawrence.
Watford 2, Huddersfield 0. The home side in danger of running riot here. Gerard Deulofeu with a superb goal from the narrowest of angles, slotting home from the right-hand side and adding to Roberto Pereira's superb effort early on. It's Watford 2, Huddersfield Town 0.
Let's see what is happening between Southampton and Newcastle. Alan Lewis.
Southampton 0, Newcastle 0. A bright start by the home side. Elyounoussi and Charlie Austin have both tested Dubravka in the Newcastle goal. The Saints looking for their first league goal in 5 games this afternoon. Both managers, Rafa Benitez and Mark Hughes, pacing their technical areas. They know this is a big game at the bottom this afternoon, but at the moment it's goalless. Southampton 0, Newcastle 0.
And to Anfield, where it is Liverpool against Cardiff. Shane Pennington.
It's Liverpool 1, Cardiff 0, and that early goal from Mo Salah still separates the two sides, although Liverpool will feel they should be further in front in this game. Van Dijk has seen the header hit the right-hand post from a Mo Salah right-wing cross, and then Salah himself involved in a bit of tussling on the edge of the box, but he wanted a penalty. Referee though, Stuart Atwell, wasn't interested. Cardiff have offered nothing going forward currently, and Liverpool in total control this game. It's Liverpool 1, Cardiff 0.
A reminder of our live double-header tomorrow. It's Crystal Palace against Arsenal at 1:30. Gary is going to be alongside Bernard O'Toole for that, and then myself and Brian Carroll will be at Old Trafford for Manchester United against Everton, which gets underway at 4 o'clock. Just a couple of goals in the Championship so far. Sheffield Wednesday are 1-0 up away at Birmingham. Hull are 1-0 up away at Bolton. It finished 1-1 in the early game between Middlesbrough and Derby, where Darren Randolph was in smashing form in goal for Middlesbrough. So we were talking earlier with Gary about Fulham and Jokanovic and being incredibly naive with the way he wants to play. Basically, he seems to think Fulham can play the way they could in the Championship.
In the Premier League.
And Keith Andrews was on the Sky commentary for the match between Fulham and Manchester City when they were absolutely killed. And he was unbelievably critical of, again, just how ridiculous their tactics were. That Cyrus Christie didn't have to track back, Andrew Shirley didn't have to track back against arguably the most talented team in Europe right now. Like, as a manager, did you have a philosophy that you brought to Galway that regardless of the players in front of you, regardless of being in Division 1 and being a team who were been slightly tipped for promotion, did you have a philosophy that you wanted to implement, or do you wait and see what the players are? And
I suppose there was different scenarios at the different clubs. I think you can get away with having your own philosophy and saying, right, it's my way or the highway if you're one of the bigger fish. I think if you're an underdog where you're likely to be second favourite in most games, then I think you've got to adapt to the opposition a little bit more and kind of work around that. And certainly at Wexford we would have very much been kind of chopping and changing the system and that depending on who we were coming up against. Likewise at Galway, because in the first year we were in the Premier, we would have been one of the smaller teams as well. And then to be honest, Nathan, I suppose failing to put a proper stamp on a style of play and philosophy in the first division when we were one of the favourites, that probably came back to bite me. Do you remember the Monday Night Football start of the season, the argument between Carragher
about Unai Emery?
That was brilliant. That was fast. And I was listening to Gary Neville, and he was talking about that's the mistakes I made when I was at Valencia, and I'm sitting there going, that's the mistakes I made at Galway as well.
Yeah, it's funny because we spoke about that, Gary, I think at the time, and to be honest, I was very much on the Jamie Carragher side of things, which was that Emery shouldn't stick with what he wants to because he doesn't have the players. Neville was, no, you battle through it, you say it's my way or the highway, you decide we're going to go with this very all-out attacking style of football. I'm going to want Petr Cech to play it out from the back, my centre-backs, even if it doesn't suit them. And they've won 11 games in a row. I guess Gary Neville has won that argument?
No, I don't think he has, because you need some context. You need to have seen Arsenal play this season, and you can argue that against West Ham they could have been 2 or 3-0 down at home. Likewise against Everton, likewise against Leicester. the thing that they've been able to do, and Shane said that, is that they've had the quality to win the games in the second half. But when they play against the better teams, those games might be over by half time. So it is a work in progress. I think Emery has had a massive impact there. And not only in terms of defensively, but even offensively, how much organised they are. They've got patterns of play rather than off the cuff and relying on moments of magic that their players can provide that Wenger often used to see. But I think there's a lot of work to be done, and I think it's a massive game against Liverpool. I think Liverpool will put them to the sword quite comfortably, to be perfectly honest. I think defensively, there's a lot of room for improvement with Arsenal.
Yeah, I guess we'll only know with Arsenal and Unai Emery in the next month, because they've Liverpool next week, as Gary touched upon. They have Manchester United. They have a North London derby as well to come before Christmas. That's when you get a proper sense of whether their centre-backs are comfortable on the ball when they're going up against some of the best strikers in the world.
Yeah, they had a relatively easy run of games since the first two games that they had. The Chelsea game, I suppose, when they were still a work in progress. They've probably scored, I think, the two best goals I've seen in the Premier League this season. Both outrageous stuff. The goal in Fulham was almost every bit as good as the goal against Leicester. It's incredible to watch, and I think people forget about what the joy of playing football like that can do to players in terms of just making them happy, like in the Ozil expression when they got that goal during the week, you know. Like, so if you're playing for the Ireland team or that, or even if you're playing for a typically rigid Mourinho team, you do your job, but it's almost like kind of, this is a task for 90 minutes to perform. It's kind of a function that is bestowed on me by the manager. Whereas if you can play a little bit off the cuff like that, it makes you go back to that kid that you were in the park, or when you got that amazing goal, even in training, that just make you appreciate the beautiful game. But they have bigger tests ahead. Just on the philosophy, you know, we mentioned that Kenny Shields got sacked. Derry City conceded 70 goals this season, and when they were on a shocking run of form, they won a game. I can't remember who was against, and Kenny came in after the game bemoaning the fact that they'd won the game by being negative in the second half, and I was just like, Kenny Shields had a philosophy of playing football, but like, he forgot that you actually had to defend, and they just lost their way completely. Their philosophy was absolutely redundant.
Yeah, I just wonder in that, Shane, what Johnny's saying about Arsenal, and they're now playing with a smile on their face, and Mesut Ozil looks comfortable and looks like one of the best players in the Premier League. Ultimately, results solve everything, because what we're talking about with Arsenal and a freedom, is that not what they were given under Arsene Wenger for the last 3-4 years?
And this is where, as you say, like, results write the story. And when you're on the other side of the fence, and you're involved in and watching things, and you see the whole narration being spun depending on the result, I've as a manager, I've seen our team been heralded for fantastic football and a great performance when we know from the underlying stats in the game that we robbed it and we really didn't deserve to win the game, and vice versa. You've had games where, but unfortunately the result absolutely writes narrative. I think Gary's hit the nail on the head. I think Arsenal are looking really, really good at the moment, but it's ridiculous for anybody to get carried away. They've beaten really nobody. They look very good, but there's no point in talking about them as title contenders until after those 3 games.
Yeah, Gary, on Mesut Ozil's form and his position, like, what is different with Ozil over the last couple of months and over... Have we lost Gary? No. Oh, Gary's he just got fed up listening to us, I think, and gone to do something better with his Saturday afternoon, which, who could blame him? But on Mesut Ozil, what I was going to ask was, like, what is actually different with Mesut Ozil's performance? Is it just he's playing with a smile on his face, or actually has Unai Emery set Arsenal up tactically that they're now getting more out of him?
Well, he's certainly in the other night he played in an out-and-out 10 position, and this is the problem that they're going to have going forward. Is right. It's wonderful at the moment that Aubameyang, I always struggle to say that one, comes off the bench and is banging in goals. But how? Like, he's not going to be happy remaining on the bench for the next few games and coming on and doing what he's doing. So you've got himself, you've got Lacazette, you've got Ozil, you've got Ramsey, and you've probably got a situation where to play them in their proper positions, you can only play 2 of those 4 on any given week, and that's going to be you could argue a good headache, but whether he gets that balance right depending on the different opposition is going to be vital for them over the next few weeks.
Yeah, I guess the problem probably for Arsenal is that, so you're saying to be at the best tactically he should only play 2 of the 4. He's always going to play 3 of the 4.
I don't think he did the other night. I mean, Ramsey and Aubameyang were both on the bench again the other night. I mean, how do you get... If you're going to play Ozil and the 2 lads, then the 2 lads kind of, you're going to play one of them out wide, or you're going to play Ozil out wide. You know, you're kind of fitting square pegs in round holes, really, so you are. And that's what I thought was impressive the other night, that while it was a tough decision to leave 2 out, he did leave 2 out.
We're running a charity auction on the show all day today. Do you fancy hurling for Kilkenny or Tipperary? Would you like to tog out with Henry Shefflin, Tommy Welch or JJ Delaney? Or is it your dream to share a dressing room with Lar Corbett, Seamus Callanan and Owen Kelly? Well, this amazing auction that we're running is for place on the Tipper Kilkenny panels, and it's all for an amazing cause, the Amanda Stapleton benefit match, which will see Tip and Kilkenny with all their big names of past and present come together once more in Bursley in Tipperary next Saturday evening. What we're auctioning off is the chance of a meet and greet with your heroes. You'll tog out with the county of your choice. You'll be in the team photo and you'll get to march behind the pipe band with Tip or Kilkenny when the legends return. So the auction is at €300. You can lodge your interest by either texting us to 53106 or hit us up with a DM. We will close it in around about an hour and a half from now. So please do support a brilliant cause, the Amanda Stapleton benefit match taking place next Saturday. The latest scores in the Premier League then, it's still Liverpool 1, Cardiff City 0. Scoreless between Southampton and Newcastle. Bournemouth are 1-0 up away at Fulham. It's scoreless between Brighton and Wolves, and Watford are 1-0 up against Huddersfield. So we'll bring you through all the half times as we head towards them and all the latest scores right after these.
Football on Off the Ball.
In association with the faster than ever Boyle Sports app. Multiples made easy and personalised content on every sport. Download it now. Boyle Sports. Time to play.
Do you believe in ghosts? Does the supernatural scare you? If you have a genuine ghost story, Lunchtime Live wants to hear from you. I want you to tell me your story on this Wednesday for Halloween. Send your stories to lunchtimelive@newstalk.com or tweet us at lunchtimelivent.
Lunchtime Live with Ciara Kelly.
Thanks to VideoDoc.
Weekdays from midday on News Talk.
I ain't afraid of no ghosts.
Hi, I'm Richard Tiernan, SuperValue store owner. All things considered, SuperValue is the only place you need to shop this week, with offers like SuperValue Fresh Irish Steak Sale, save 33%, SuperValue Medium Pumpkins, only €2, and selected range beer and stout cans, 24-pack, €20 each. All things considered, it's SuperValue. Enjoy alcohol responsibly.
Enjoy your independent time this Saturday. Tricks for Treats transform pumpkins into devilishly good desserts this Halloween with our magical recipes in Weekend Kitchen. No financial frights. Our personal finance experts Charlie Weston and Sinead Ryan take the scares out of dealing with the tax man with their guide to this weekend's pay and file deadline. Sporting Life. In sport, Tony Ward looks back at Munster beating the All Blacks and vote in our Reader Travel Awards to win a bucket list travel prize. Irish Independent on Saturday and independent.ie. Take a fresh look.
Where do your skis take you? To flee from imaginary enemies like a budget Bond in Austria? To savour the stunning surroundings and an apéro or two in Italy? To après ski way après a sensible hour in France? Or to enjoy the stress-free slopes and duty-free prices in Andorra? Wherever your skis take you, get there with the award-winning Top Flight, Ireland's most trusted ski tour operator for 40 years. Book your ski holiday now at topflight.ie.
Bruce Betting Sportsbook, Casino and now Live Casino. Download the Bruce Betting app to see why for the Premier League, Bruce Betting are giving you more. With price boosts, live in-play betting, cash out and ACCA insurance. Make Bruce Betting your Premier League bookmaker. Bruce Betting, in-store, online and now on your phone. Please gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
Over 2 centuries, one family business in Dublin has earned a name for excellence in funeral care. Every day they continue to work hard to retain that good name. The name is Fannigan's. Dubliners trust Fannigan's to take care of them on their final journey with empathy, compassion and dignity. And Fannigan's never forget whose journey it is. In over 200 years, some things don't change. Fannigan's. When your thoughts are with them, ours are with you. The Fannigan Group includes Carnegie's, Kirwins and Nichols.
Some bus routes in Dublin are now operated by Go Ahead Ireland on behalf of Transport for Ireland. So if you take the 184, 185, 111, 45A, 59, 63 or 75, keep an eye out for the new look buses. On board it'll be business as usual with the same fares and TFI Leap Card, free travel pass, Dublin Bus Rambler, monthly and annual tax saver tickets, all valid on these services. For real-time service information, download our TFI Real-Time Ireland and Journey Planner apps. For more information, visit transportforireland.ie.
Transform your cinematic experience with Sony. Selected Bravia models come with a 5-year guarantee and for a limited time, a free HT CT290 Sony soundbar. For more information, go to paracity.ie or call in store today.
So you'll never guess what just happened to me at Applegreen.
You fill the car up with the quality fuel that saves you up to 4 cents a litre, reduces harmful emissions, and because it's additised, helps keep our engine clean.
Yes, all that. Very good, yeah. And I bumped into Did you say save up to 4 cents a litre?
The revolution is fuel good from Applegreen, our most advanced fuel ever at no extra cost. Applegreen, low fuel prices, always.
A 1930s Rolls-Royce sports saloon, Model T Ford, Panther and other vintage cars are among 3,000 lots at an important auction. Also rock memorabilia, 1979 papal altar flag, garden and hotel furnishings. It's on October 29th and 30th at the Heritage Golf Resort Killinard, County Laois. Viewing 25th to 28th. Visit victormeauctions.ie.
Toyota Hybrid is definitely the way to go.
For me, it was an easy decision. The cost savings of the fuel, the insurance and the car tax, that's the price of a holiday.
From my own setup as a mum, a full tank would last me 5 to 6 weeks, which I just couldn't believe.
With greater fuel economy, driving Toyota Hybrid means real savings.
People just want to know, is it cheaper to run? Which it is, of course.
Join thousands of Irish drivers and switch to a self-charging hybrid today. Toyota, built for a better world.
Football on Off the Ball.
In association with the faster than ever Boyle Sports app. Multiples made easy and personalised content on every sport. Download it now. Boyle Sports. Time to play.
Here's Ozil, space inside the area, just pulls it across and Lacazette seals the win for Arsenal.
What a chance for Palace at the start of the second half from Milivojevic. It's in! Carl Darlow got a big hand to it. I thought he'd saved it, but it just looped into the roof of the net.
Trick toss it inside the area, chance for a second, and it is a second for Everton. And it's another one of the substitutes, Jack Tossen.
Martial against Pickford, rolls it into the corner. Manchester United take a 4-goal lead.
Yeah, double header of live Premier League action on Off the Ball tomorrow. First up, we're at Selhurst Park for Crystal Palace against Arsenal. Gary's going to be at that alongside Bernard O'Toole, and then myself and Brian Kerr will be at Old Trafford for Manchester United against Everton, which once again has become a very interesting game. Jose Mourinho under increased scrutiny, under increased pressure. It really does feel at the moment as though they're one game away constantly from complete another crisis.
Yeah,
it's hard to get out of that cycle.
It's probably a bit harsh on him in the sense of their last 2 league results were good, and against Juve, was it a good or a bad thing that they just looked very inferior? I don't think you could necessarily blame.
How could it be a good thing?
You couldn't blame Mourinho, at least in terms of how he set up. They just didn't have the players to beat Juve on the night.
He bought the players.
Yeah, but this is what are we 7 months into the season now? They either back him or let him go. I don't think he has a future there really. It was quite startling to see. I actually don't think Juve are all that. I don't think they're all that. They're a very good side. As I said last week, I was at the Milan derby last week, and they're certainly a lot better than Inter or Milan. But themselves and Napoli are 2 good sides. But like, you'd fancy Liverpool to give Liverpool and Man City to beat Juve, and Man United just, we were maybe discussing Lukaku later, but some of them players just they're not able to cut it at that level. And I thought it was a very flattering 1-0 defeat. In the sense of they were flattered to be even beaten by a goal.
Latest scores in the Premier League, it is still Liverpool 1, Cardiff 0. Fulham are 1-0 down at home against Bournemouth. Scoreless between Brighton and Wolves, and also between Southampton and Newcastle, while Watford are 2-0 up at home against Huddersfield. Gerardeo Lefeu scored the second goal. Roberto Pereira with the first for Watford. The late game is between Leicester City and West Ham. Gary Breen is still on the line as well. Gary, on that Manchester United game tomorrow then, and I was saying it just feels that the vibe around United is like if they were to be beaten by Everton tomorrow, and Everton are in decent form, they've won their last 3 Premier League games, it'd be very interesting to see what the reaction around Old Trafford will be at the full-time whistle. What's your sense of what's going on? Because they were very impressive for a good chunk of that game away at Chelsea last week. Like when that vibe gets in and around the club, is it very hard to shake?
I think it is at a club like Manchester United. I think they're just struggling for any sort of identity, in total contrast to, say, Jose Mourinho's pragmatic winning style up against the philosophy of Manchester United and the expansive type of football. And I think the problem that we always have, Mourinho, is that ex-players coming out, Cantona saying now that it doesn't look good to watch them and stuff like that. But I think everyone's still gauging Manchester United against Ferguson's teams. But we've had Van Gaal, we've had Moyes since then, and people have to accept that United on the pitch operate at a reduced status. Maybe not in marketing terms, not in terms of the structure or the sheer size of the club, but in terms of the pitch, I mean, they're 10th in the Premier League. It's an incredible fall from grace, really.
A lot of attention this week starting to focus on Romelu Lukaku then. He hasn't scored in his last 8 matches, and it's his record against the leading clubs, particularly in the Champions League and in the Premier League as well. You look over recent seasons and compare him to Mo Salah or to Harry Kane. He loves the games where it's cannon fodder and he can rack up 2 or 3 goals quickly. Last season, Chelsea were the only one of the leading teams he scored against in the Premier League. Is that just him, or can they be getting more out of him?
Well, I think they could create more chances for him in terms of being able to score the goals. I mean, he got 68 goals for Everton in the Premier League, but he doesn't look like anywhere near that type of player now at Manchester United. And it's a massive jump in stature. To be the centre forward of Manchester United, you need to be the best of the best. It's as simple as that. And I think initially when he signed for Mourinho, I wasn't surprised. He's always had that robust, physical type striker. He had Drogba and Costa in his 2 title-winning teams at Chelsea. But if you were to put the 3 of them together, I don't think there'd be many supporters who wouldn't have Lukaku as their 3rd choice. I don't think he's in that level of Costa, Drogba in terms of leading the line. Maybe lacking a little bit of personality that's needed for it, that real mental strength. But he certainly is a goal scorer. But scoring goals for Manchester United is a different challenge altogether.
I mean, just to highlight how blunt he is at the moment, Gary, I was looking at it. His attempts, never mind attempts on target, his attempts full stop. This season he's had 19 attempts. That's against 44 for Sergio Aguero, and probably even more damning, it's against 34 for Mitrovic. I mean, Mitrovic is playing in an absolutely awful Fulham team, and he's got nearly double the amount of attempts, had nearly double the amount of attempts this season.
So is that the real worry, if you think of the old cliche of managers that they only get worried if they're not creating the chances? It's not about taking them, it's not creating them, which clearly United aren't for Lukaku. Or is there a sense that actually this is a real deep-rooted lack of confidence for Lukaku now, and he's sort of keeping his head down and trying to live in the shadows and not putting himself into the positions he was over the last few years?
Well, you can't live in the shadows at Manchester United. That's the big difference. You're always going to be the headline act as such. And in what Shane said there, you're talking about a Fulham team that all they want to do is attack, and that's why they've conceded 26 goals in 10 games. The complete contrast of Jose Mourinho in terms of how he sets his team up. His defence first is the priority, and he's not interested in playing expansive football, creating loads of chances for his centre forwards. But what he would do, and what he does expect as a Manchester United centre forward, is that when you do create chances, they're taken. I think Lukaku's not as prolific as previous United's forwards.
It's been obvious for a long time with Lukaku, and I think I don't know how people haven't seen it. Like, it's not just his record against the good teams. It's like that Arsenal goal during the week. Lukaku doesn't have the ability to link play like that very quickly. He's just that bit laboured when he has the ball. He's a bit one-dimensional. I know his goal scoring record in the main is good, but you can see the limitations of his game, and I think that's the limitations of Mourinho as well, that he would sign a player like that, because Lukaku at Man City wouldn't even be considered getting anywhere near a Man City team, because he just doesn't have it outside the box in terms of his general play.
But look, it is chicken and egg. You know, yeah, he doesn't look wonderful, but I mean, Gary, you said, I think the supply line as well. Like you were saying there that a Mourinho team is pragmatic, defensive-minded maybe first and foremost, but he used to be able to get the balance better than that. Like you look at that, you were saying Drogba at Chelsea. Like Drogba had Duffer and Robin supplying bullets to him week in, week out, and he was mopping up on that. That balance doesn't seem to be there. I mean, Martial and Rashford are probably more interested in scoring their own goals than they are in setting up goals for Lukaku, aren't they? You know,
Lukaku, he is still only 25, and another factor in this maybe, Gary, is like the sheer amount of games he's played. He's 25. He's played 450 matches already. It's a massive amount of games for anybody. I do just wonder if there's another touch of Wayne Rooney and Michael Owen that he peaks in his early 20s, and from then on it's a bit of a struggle. Has just lost a bit of his verve, a bit of his vitality, just gone from him.
Yeah, well, he's not alone in the fact that he got to the World Cup semi-finals. We've seen it with Harry Kane, don't look themselves, and those players obviously have got that headache or that hangover as such from the World Cup, and the very fact that they probably haven't had a pre-season that you need to go into a new Premier League season. But I'd half agree with Johnny. At times, I don't think it's a natural fit with United, like I don't think Mourinho is a natural fit for them as manager. I'm not disputing the very fact that he's a top-class manager, and likewise, I think Lukaku would score goals for a lot of other teams. But it's a different remit when you've got to lead the line for Manchester United.
Leinster are 12-3 up against Benetton Treviso, heading for half-time in their Pro 14 game. Adam Byrne and James Tracy with the tries for Leinster in that match. Let's go to the Amex Stadium, see what's happening between Brighton and Wolves. Andrew Cheal.
Brighton 0, Wolves 0. It really should be 1-0 Wolves. Fullback Matt Doherty with a lovely 1-2 on the edge of the box. Had a clear shot, begging to be hit the target, but he managed to slide it wide of the far post. What a wasteful effort that was by Matt Doherty of Wolves. At the other end, Solly Marches trying to do it all himself. First hopeful shot blocked by defender from the rebound. Another hopeful shot, this time well wide. Brighton 0, Wolves 0.
So a big chance gone begging for Matt Doherty in that game. Let's see what's happening at Craven Cottage. Fulham against Bournemouth. Nigel Bidmead.
Fulham 0, Bournemouth 1. The visitors still leading through that early penalty by Callum Wilson, who was fouled in the box by Timothy Fosu-Mensah. Wilson has had a header over the crossbar, and at the other end, Ryan Sessegnon booked for diving, shown a yellow card after a challenge by the goalkeeper. Begovic, smart save from Andre Schürrle. That was in the 22nd minute. First time shot from the German. Begovic equal to it. Fulham 0, Bournemouth 1.
Liverpool still 1-0 up against Cardiff. They're in first half injury time at Anfield as they press for a second. Mo Salah scored the goal, and there's a goal line clearance by Cardiff there. It was a smashing header at the back post.
Got to give Cardiff some credit though. When they have gotten the chance to break, they've really committed numbers. Like, if they can break it all of a sudden they've 4 or 5 players attacking. And then what's interesting is which inevitably will most of the time, when it breaks down, there's this massive gap back to their defence, and it's just like Liverpool must be just thinking, please let us get on the break here. But fair play to Cardiff. They've sat in, but they have actually tried to break.
That was Adam Lallana with the header for Liverpool that was cleared off the line. What an addition he is as well, having played such a small amount of football over the past year. So half-time whistle has gone at Anfield. We'll check in with Shane Pennington in a moment. The problem for Liverpool in a way is that it's almost been too easy. They've had so much of the ball. You can see Moreno and Alexander-Arnold in the full-back positions getting more and more confident and are pretty much just camped inside the Cardiff half, which is allowing Cardiff to catch them on the counter. And that's really, I guess, why they need this second goal.
Yeah, they genuinely do look like they could score Cardiff if
it's just missing one final ball or one missed tackle.
Exactly. Bit of quality up front. Liverpool still probably have the odd question to answer, especially if Moreno's playing defensively. There's certainly a little bit more there for the taking, but it's as you say, Nathan, that second goal will be key for them.
If they can stay in the game, I think the one thing they have done well this year, unsurprisingly for a Warnock side, is their set pieces are decent.
Gary, what Johnny's saying there about Liverpool, maybe still just 1 or 2 questions that they still have to answer. Do you see that with them?
Well, yeah, I think that they need to get that killer second goal. I think Cardiff stayed in the game after conceding early against Spurs just before the international break, and Tottenham, as we know in the Premier League, the game's still at risk if you don't get that second goal to put teams to bed. I think Liverpool, we said it prior to the start of this game, the likes of Manchester City just puts Cardiff to the sword. They go 2 or 3-0 up and game's over. I think Liverpool have to get that ruthlessness.
They've so many options at the moment, Liverpool, so many different players they can play in midfield. Like, you look at the team again today, they make changes. The midfield is Fabinho, who looks to have finally settled in. Maybe it's a very similar situation to Andy Robertson last year, where everyone was wondering where the hell he was for the first couple of months as he stuck by Moreno. He also said he did something with Gundogan when he was at Borussia Dortmund, that he's waited for Fabinho and now he's ready to unleash him. And then they've Adam Lallana and Jorginho Wijnaldum. There's no Milner, there's no Henderson, there's no Shaqiri in there. There's a lot of options. By the time you get to March, and Liverpool will hope they're still in a title race and they'll hope they're in the quarterfinals of the Champions League, do you want to know what your best Liverpool midfield is by then? That going into a big match, you know exactly the 3 players that are going to start? Or do you think there's always been a constant rotation?
I think you will know. I think when you get to the business end of the season, you'll know who your best team is, but you need the whole squad to get you to those positions where you can still be competing as you go deep into competitions. And I think it will be a decision made literally on the week before. We'll know ourselves when watching the games who have performed in the high profile games. But it's a great chance for Fabinho to have this time to settle in after being a big money signing. The very fact that he hasn't had to play straight away, he's been able to adjust to how Klopp wants to play, understand the demands of the Premier League in terms of its intensity. And I think the very fact that he's coming in now, he should be fresh then for the business end of the season when the games come thick and fast. So the strength in depth is probably the most impressive thing about Liverpool in terms of their recruitment this summer, that they seem to have options everywhere you look.
Let's see what happened then in the opening 45 minutes at Anfield. Liverpool against Cardiff. Shane Pennington.
It's Liverpool 1, Cardiff 0. Mo Salah's early strike separates the two sides, although Jurgen Klopp will be disappointed this game isn't dead and buried. They've had the chances. Van Dijk's seen a header hit the right-hand post from a Salah cross, and right on half-time, Adam Lallana's header was cleared off the line by Sean Morrison. Cardiff have barely got out of their own half, and as of yet, haven't had a shot for Alisson to worry about. It's Liverpool 1, Cardiff 0.
One of the more remarkable stats from Liverpool's point of view is that this could be a 10th consecutive home clean sheet, which was not something we thought we would ever see under Jurgen Klopp.
No, but that's probably before Virgil arrived, I think, isn't it? He really has been absolutely outstanding for them. Really, really, like he's certainly propelled himself into the top 5 centre halves in world football at the moment. He's been outstanding, and he's been one of those players that it's been a win-win in that he has been brilliant, but there's no doubt he's made those around him look better as well. Gomez has looked, brilliant when in beside him there as well, so he has, and he's just, I think the Liverpool, the rest of the Liverpool players I think they just look at him and go, yeah, this man's a leader, this man is exactly what we needed, yeah.
And it's also effortless from him as well. I still go back to watching him play for Holland against France. I think it was in the Nations League in September. And Mbappe went at him on the halfway line. He found himself pressed high up the pitch, and Mbappe went full speed. And just this long stride, kept going with Mbappe every step of the way. And as Mbappe pulled the trigger in the area, just took out his left foot, blocked it down, calmly came away with the ball. You're like, that is as good as it gets in terms of defending.
Yeah, you tend to call them Rolls Royces. I think Rio at his best was very like that as well, wasn't he? That effortless style of play. Look, he's top class, there's no doubt.
I got to give you some credit, Gary. I think you were one of the few people who say this time last year felt that actually Klopp did the right thing in waiting, because there were big question marks. I think at this stage last season they conceded 15 goals in their first 5 away games. Defensively they were all over the shop away from Anfield, but you did feel that he did the right thing in not just going and spending 40 million on another defender, waiting to get the right man.
Yeah, there was so much talk at the time. I think ex-Liverpool players like Jamie Redknapp was saying he should have signed Davinson Sanchez from Ajax, but I'd seen a lot of him in the Eredivisie. I knew he wasn't a natural fit for Liverpool. He'd done well in a 3 at Tottenham, but they needed a centre-half who was perfect for the way Klopp plays. And we talked about it so often. The very fact that he gives them that physical presence to cope with Route 1 football, which he can do. He can go up against the likes of Andy Carroll and comfortably dominate them. He can go up against the smaller centre-forwards who drag him wide. And we've seen a difference. And I think you're quite right to say, Shane, that the difference not only that he's made and the impact he's done individually, but the impact he's had amongst the team, the very fact that they just look round now, they've got so much confidence in him. And, I mean, it's a brilliant signing, and he just looks a natural fit for Jurgen Klopp's style of play.
Well, it's a very different defence at Fulham. They've conceded 25 goals this season going into the match against Bournemouth. Conceded another one in the first half. Let's get the half-time from Craven Cottage from Nigel Bidmead.
Fulham 0, Bournemouth 1. The visitors taking the lead on 14 through the penalty spot. Callum Wilson fouled in the area by Timothy Fosu-Mensah. It was Wilson himself who took the spot kick, sending the goalkeeper the wrong way for his 4th goal of the season. A couple of good opportunities for Fulham subsequently. Andre Schürrle with a snapshot, well saved by Begovic in the Bournemouth goal. And then a corner came over, a die on the near post. It was a firm contact, but wide. Fulham 0, Bournemouth 1.
Next up, we'll go to the Amex. It is Brighton against Wolves and Andrew Cheal.
Brighton 0, Wolves 0. Wolves have played like the home side, Brighton like the away side. Wolves really should be ahead, but for a bad miss by Matt Doherty after a delightful 1-2, managed to slide it wide at the far post. Right on half-time for Brighton, Lewis Dunk, the centre-back, headed wide when scoring looked easier. Wolves all the possession, all the best chances, but at half-time it's Brighton 0, Wolves 0.
A big game at St Mary's for both Mark Hughes and Rafa Benitez. Southampton against Newcastle. It's Alan Lewis.
Southampton 0, Newcastle 0. No lack of effort from these two sides, but lacking a little bit in quality. Elyounoussi had an early chance for Southampton. Redmond fired over the crossbar, and Austin was denied right on the half-time whistle by a good save from Dubravka. Muto and Kennedy with half chances for the away side, but both of these teams have just one win between them so far this season, and at times it shows. Southampton 0, Newcastle 0.
Huddersfield still struggling for goals. Watford flying high once again at Vicarage Road. Mike Lawrence.
Watford 2, Huddersfield 0. Watford back on song and heading for back-to-back wins unless there's a dramatic change in the second half. The home side set on their way on 10 minutes with Roberto Pereira slotting home with the Huddersfield defenders like statues. 10 minutes later, Gerard Deulofeu doubled the lead, squeezing the ball into the net from the narrow angle from the right-hand side. Adrian Moyer had shots from inside and outside the box as Huddersfield looked to get back into it. Chris Love hit the crossbar. Watford 2, Huddersfield 0.
So there are the half-time scores in the Premier League. Leinster leading Benetton Treviso 12-3 at half-time in the Guinness Pro 14 in Italy. Adam Byrne and James Tracy with the tries for Leinster. Gary, we shall let you go. We'll talk to you tomorrow. You're going to be at Selhurst Park for Crystal Palace against Arsenal alongside Bernard O'Toole. You'll have a chance for once maybe to gush about Arsenal. It's a while since we've had you talking extremely positively about your favourite team.
Looking forward to it, to see the work that Emery's done. Obviously, he's had a massive impact. The Arsenal supporters are singing, "We've got our Arsenal back." Well, listen, I'll reserve judgment until I see him tomorrow. All right, great stuff. We shall talk to you then. Of course, Manchester United, Everton is our second live game. The latest scores in the Championship, it's 1-1 between Birmingham and Sheffield Wednesday. Hull still 1-0 up away at Bolton. Stoke 1-0 up away against Bristol City. It's Sheffield United 2, Wigan 1. Norwich lead Brentford by a goal to nil. Swansea 1-0 up at home against Reading. West Brom lead Blackburn by a goal to nil. Craig Dawson's just scored for West Brom. Millwall lead Ipswich 1-0. And Preston are 1-0 up at home against Rotherham. Tom Barkhuizen with the goal for Preston in that one. Plenty more to come. The two lads are going to stick with us in studio. I want your text as well, your thoughts, 53106, or leave a comment on any of our social channels.
Football on Off the Ball.
In association with the faster than ever Boyle Sports app. Multiples made easy and personalised content on every sport. Download it now. Boyle Sports. Time to play.
Listen back to your favourite News Talk shows at newstalk.com and on the News Talk app.
Celebrate the bank holiday with Centra. We have great offers, like inspired by Centra Pizza range, any 2 for €8 or €5 each. Until Sunday, Carlsberg or Budweiser 12-pack cans, 2 for €20. And Coke Zero 8-can pack, 2 for €7 or €4 each. Centra. Live every day. Enjoy, call sensibly.
Oh, why did I do this spin class? I think she's trying to kill me. Is that sweat or tears?
I'm done.
Right, pool, then home.
Just like you do, an Irish Life Health Benefit Plan goes further, offering you a range of benefits that support your health and well-being, like letting you claim up to €250 back on things like sports clubs and dietitians. Search irishlifehealth.ie and see how you can benefit. Irish Life Health DAC is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Call us to see exactly what's covered. Terms and conditions apply.
Maybe your dream has a twin exhaust, or 7 seats, or leather upholstery. Maybe your dream comes with a marble worktop, or a walk-in wardrobe. Maybe it fits on your finger, or maybe it covers the world. Whatever it is, big or small, a personal loan from Bank of Ireland can help to make that dream come true. Search Bank of Ireland Loans, call us, or drop into any Bank of Ireland branch. Bank of Ireland is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Lending criteria, terms and conditions apply. Over 18s only. Warning. If you do not meet the repayments of your loan, your account will go into arrears. This may affect your credit rating, which may limit your ability to access credit in the future.
Bruce Betting, Sportsbook, Casino, and now Live Casino. Download the Bruce Betting app to see why for the Premier League, Bruce Betting are giving you more. With price boosts, live in-play betting, cash out, and ACCA insurance. Make Bruce Betting your Premier League bookmaker. Bruce Betting, in-store, online, and now on your phone. Please gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
Buying a house shouldn't be all about red tape. It should be about rolling out the red carpet. My Sherry Fits is an online platform that allows you to make offers, see other offers, contact your agent and book viewings. All online, anytime you like. It's an entirely new way to buy a home, built on everything we've always believed in. Find out more at mysherryfits.ie. Sherry Fitzgerald. It's not just about property, it's about people.
I'm Grace, I'm from County Laois. I work as a full-time care assistant and I use Circle K in Portlaoise. As a mum of one, I find I'm always on the go, whether it's driving my daughter to football training, doing the weekly shop or driving her to school. I feel I don't always have to fill up as much when I use miles from Circle K, and I also feel like I get my money's worth, which is hugely important to me.
Miles from Circle K saves you up to 4 cents per litre. Miles fuels are A quality approved. Savings may vary. See circlek.ie/miles for details.
Every brand has a story. Some are built over decades, others over centuries. Discover the German car brand meticulously engineered over 120 years to bring you our cleanest, most efficient engines yet. Discover Opel. Come and celebrate Opel's 120-year anniversary event at your local Opel dealership. Choose your perfect 191 Opel, then choose your preferred offer, like 0% PCP or HP finance, a guaranteed minimum of €3,000 scrappage, or 3 years free servicing. Opel's 120-year anniversary event until October 31st. Visit your Opel dealership for more. Opel. The future is everyone's. Terms and conditions apply.
First man to walk on the moon.
It'll be a hell of a ride.
First Man has critics rating 5 stars. It's a blockbuster that's out of this world. It's an extraordinary cinematic achievement. It will take your breath away.
Good luck.
From the director of La La Land, Ryan Gosling.
We have serious problems. We've got this under control.
Claire Foy.
You don't have anything under control.
It's the best movie of the year.
Do you think you're coming back?
First Man. In cinemas now. Certificate 12A.
Big news. Netflix is on Sky Q. So, it's never been easier to go from a Netflix show to a Sky show. 1 minute you're having a royal time watching The Crown.
How nice.
And the next you're exploring Westworld.
Where are we?
You can get lost in Stranger Things. And then find yourself right in the thick of Game of Thrones. Whoa! The best TV all in one place. Netflix on Sky Q. Coming November.
Visit sky.com/Netflix for terms and conditions.
On 106 to 108 FM and at newstalk.com. This is News Talk.
4 o'clock, good afternoon, I'm Susan Keogh. The first constituencies have started to declare their votes in the presidential election. Offaly's the latest to declare, with Michael D. Higgins getting 47% and Peter Casey on 31%. Other declarations are expected in the next hour, with the final result likely to be early this evening. Arriving at Dublin Castle, Peter Casey says he wants a word from the Taoiseach.
He actually went and said to people not to vote for Peter Casey. I mean, that was disgraceful. I think he's definitely not listening to people. Yeah, and I think that that'll be reflected the next time he goes to the opinion polls.
Sinn Féin's candidate Liana Rida looks set to come in third place, with Sean Gallagher and Joan Freeman fighting it out for fourth and fifth. Gavin Duffy looks set to come last and has conceded his message did not resonate with the public. He also says he doesn't believe Peter Casey's comments about the travelling community were part of a strategy.
The Peter Casey I know is actually, believe it or not, a decent guy. So if there was a strategy, you'd have to attribute some evil genius to him, which I don't think he deserves. He was throwing grenades repeatedly. One of them was going to explode, and it did.
And briefly to some other news, a 66-year-old man is due in court this afternoon, charged in connection with the murder of Derry Coakley in Macroom in Cork earlier this week. And structural problems have been found at 2 more Dublin schools. Gael School Isca Rida in Lucan will have to partially close one of its buildings, while School Cautlan Maud in Talla requires remedial work but will be completed before students return after the midterm. We'll be back with live election coverage from Dublin Castle at 5. You can also follow our live blog on newstalk.com. That's it for now. We'll have more at 5.
News Talk weather.
Thanks to Des Kelly Interiors. Supplying and fitting your new carpet or wood flooring in time for Christmas. DesKelly.ie.
Very cold this afternoon and this evening, with some sunshine and showers too. Highest temperatures just 5 to 9 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
Football on Off the Ball.
In association with the faster than ever Boyle Sports app. Multiples made easy and personalised content on every sport. Download it now. Boyle Sports. Time to play.
All right, you're welcome back to Saturdays Off the Ball. Nathan with you as always. A shorter show than usual. We're off air at 5 o'clock because we're going to resume our presidential coverage on News Talk from 5 o'clock. But until then, we're going to be looking at the afternoon and the weekend's Premier League. So get in touch, 53106, if you're listening on the radio, or if you're watching on one of our social channels, do leave a comment. Shane Keegan and Johnny Ward are in studio. Second halves just getting underway in the 3 o'clock kickoffs. Liverpool leading Cardiff by 1-0, an early goal in that match for Mo Salah. Bournemouth 1-0 up away at Fulham. It's scoreless between Brighton and Wolves, and in the game between Southampton and Newcastle, Watford lead Huddersfield by 2-0. The 5:30 kickoff is Leicester against West Ham United. A lot of people wondering about the conversation we're having at the start about being a manager in the League of Ireland. What comes next then? So we were talking about when you are relieved of your position. You had a previous permanent full-time job. Do you consider going back, or have you made a life decision that I am now a full-time football man?
There's a bit of work for News Talk on the side.
Yeah, look, I'm at the moment myself, I'm coaching kind of 2 or 3 different teams that kind of approach me to come in and do different roles with them. Obviously I'm doing the weekly column with the Times as well. So look, you've got a finger in a few different pies. I kind of give myself the rest of this year to decide would I kind of tip around like that and see what opens up, or will I? Because I did enjoy my previous position, as I say, as an advertising sales manager as well, and I need to make a decision over the next probably month or two as to whether keep tipping around and living the handy life like I am at the moment, or get back into a 9 to 5. Obviously, if you go back into a 9 to 5, it then maybe limits what you're available or not available to do football wise, though.
Yeah. Does it have to be a manager's gig?
No, absolutely not. It'd be a couple of different roles that really kind of appeal to me, really. You look at what Trevor's done since going in with Keith Long. They've had absolutely phenomenal success for 2 seasons now, really, so they have. And that was a huge... I think both men need to be massively applauded there. And
how does that dynamic work?
Yeah,
so this is Trevor Crowley.
Trevor Crowley, yeah. I suppose Trevor and Keith would have been on the same pro licence as myself. And I don't know if they had much of a relationship before then, but they did kind of click. You could see they clicked a bit on the pro licence when we were all on it.
You could tell even then, like.
You could, yeah. You could see that they were... I think they, by pure chance, they got paired as room partners. So I think chance probably played a role in the whole thing. But obviously, just after our pro licence, Trevor went in at Rovers as manager, and that just didn't work out well for whatever reason. And he's come away from that. He went in at Bray, and that was a mess, and he's come away from that. And I'd say he's just thought to himself, the headache of all this management crack it's not quite cracked up to what I thought it would be. And I mean, Trevor would be widely perceived as near enough the best coach in the country. He's anybody kind of who's been involved with him or seen him work.
Okay.
He's absolutely brilliant. So you've got...
In what way?
Just his work on the pitch with players. He's obviously he was a great player, so he's got real intimate knowledge of the game himself. But he's a good manner with players. But more so, he's just where you've got certain people when you look at certain managers, and some are managers and some are coaches that became managers. Like, he's passionate about coaching. Do you know what I mean? You can imagine him sitting down and really, really getting excited as he's planning his session and all of that kind of thing. Whereas to some managers, and even me at times, you actually find putting on the session or planning the session is a bit of a chore. You'd rather be doing demand management where you're in a fella's ear and planning tactics.
So you see yourself more manager than coach?
You love tactics, don't you?
I've had to be honest with you, because when you're working at the likes of Wexford and that, you didn't have budgets to be bringing in full-time coaches. Exactly. So you were trying to do a bit of both, really. So you are, but yeah, I at the moment, as I say, now that I'm out of it, I'm coaching probably 5 nights a week, and all of a sudden I'm sharpening my coaching skills again, and I'm thinking, yeah, I actually do enjoy this, where you don't have the headaches of the real bad headaches that sometimes come with management. But for Trevor to put his ego to one side and say, I don't mind going in as a number 2 here, and more importantly for Keith to say, I don't mind somebody coming in who A, could be perceived as a threat to my job, B, if we do very, very well, people might be saying, sure, that's because of the coach and less so because of the manager. It was a masterstroke on Keith's behalf, and look, the two of them are absolutely flying. So something like that would appeal. Possibly an off-the-field role. I look at League of Ireland clubs and how badly they lack a kind of a general manager at times, somebody to work alongside the manager and make sure that everyone is there, and alongside the supporters, and worker in the background around to the general running of the club. That kind of thing would possibly excite me as well a bit.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say in Trevor Crowley, and we've had conversations recently about, do we value coaching enough? As Cardiff have equalised, have they, or is the offside flag up? The offside flag is up. It was a free kick floated into the back post, and there was a little bit of pandemonium in the penalty area. Yeah, Liverpool held their line well on the edge of the area. For a split second there, it looked as though Cardiff had pulled a goal back and had levelled it up at 1-1 at Anfield. 7 minutes gone in the second half. There has been a goal at the Amex Stadium between Brighton and Wolves. Let's hear about it from Andrew Cheel.
Brighton 1, Wolves 0 against the run of play, but Brighton fans don't worry about that too much. Glenn Murray, the scorer, a week after he got concussion. Well, he's knocked Wolves out temporarily at the moment. They failed to deal with the free kick from the left-hand side. Kayal put it back into the box, and Murray with a simple but really well-controlled right foot, side foot into the back of the net. It's Brighton 1, Wolves 0.
6 goals now this season in the Premier League for Glenn Murray. It's pretty remarkable for a 34-year-old what he's done. They went out in January, spent a lot of money on a striker, and I guess Chris Hughton got what he wanted, which was a reaction from Glenn Murray, who for pretty much all of 2018 has just been exceptional. And that would be a huge win for Brighton if they can go and beat Wolves, who are just having a little dip in form over the last couple of weeks. What I was saying before that was, we've had panels and we talk about coaching and our value of coaching, that always there's an inherent pressure on coaches to become managers because it's seen as the natural progression, and to be a true success you need to be a manager. And Lee Carsley's a really interesting subject in this because he's turned down managerial jobs and been offered really good. I think he went in and took the Brentford job for a few months even though he didn't want it, but had an opportunity at Birmingham where he could have been the full-time manager, but just seems to want to be on the training ground, doesn't want to have the rest of that nonsense, which means that he often gets overlooked for bigger positions. When we're talking about a director of Irish football, people don't talk about him, they just talk about people who are actually in management.
Yeah, look, they're just two completely separate skills. They really, really are. And some people have both. Like, you hear that the likes of Brendan Rodgers still spends an awful lot of time on the training ground. Obviously, you know, we got a bit of an insight into Pep Guardiola and the kind of work that's going on in City and the Amazon Prime documentary. I can't wrap me, like, Pep Guardiola mustn't sleep. I don't understand how he can find the hours to go do all the duties that come with management while also finding the hours to properly plan a session and deliver session content himself. It's a serious
I don't think
ask.
the Amazon Prime documentary on Manchester City did Pep Guardiola any justice either, because you have to assume all their managerial conversations happen in Spanish. So they obviously needed an English version, which meant all their conversations were the most basic. Like, the three of us could do better than what they were doing ahead of the Liverpool game in the Champions League quarter-final. It was essentially, Mane, Firmino, Salah, they're very dangerous. We'll have to do something to counter them.
They're right there.
I'm fairly sure the conversation and the planning must have been a little bit deeper than that. But obviously the documentary team were, that's really good stuff. Could you just, it's almost like Bielsa's translator, where Bielsa talks for 10 minutes and he goes, that was a good performance.
Yeah, Bielsa's another lad that you'd like to spend some time with. But they've changed it now as well in Ireland, haven't they, with regard to the pro licence, that you have to, I think you have to have a pro licence to manage in the Premier Division, don't you? Rather than, was it true that you could be in the process of getting your licence and they give you leeway?
That's right.
It takes time as well, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. Absolutely, it takes time. I think the pro licence itself probably runs for 18 months, if not 2 years. I think you're right. I think initially, once you were registered to go on to the next one, that kind of had you covered, whereas now I think they're saying that you've actually have to have it completed.
Do you agree with that? Like, because it's kind of for a young manager then, if, was it Southgate back in the day when he was kind of allowed, was it at Middlesbrough where he didn't, I think, was he doing his badges or whatever and they gave him leeway? Or there have been a few examples anyway, but now the young manager basically has to wait quite some time.
Yeah, look, being completely honest, Johnny, it's going to depend which of the two boats you're in. If you've already got the pro licence, you're going to be delighted because there's less of a pool of people to challenge you for any upcoming jobs. If you're somebody who's coming the way through, you're going to completely disagree with it. I'd love to know what the reason behind the change was.
Is the pro licence a good, stern examination of a coach's ability?
Well, you've used the wrong word, because it's definitely not an examination of a coach's ability, because there's almost no coaching on the pro licence.
It's all management.
It's all management, yeah. So your UEFA B licence, your UEFA A licence, that's where you're assessed as a coach. And that's all coaching. And it's kind of done with your youth cert, it's kind of up as far as 7v7. With your B licence, it's coaching 9v9s. And then with the A licence, it's coaching 11v11. And then when you move on to the pro licence, more stuff like dealing with the board, dealing with the media. Some of it is very, very interesting. Some of it is box-ticking exercises because it's handed down from up above again from UEFA. You have to do this, you have to do that. Some of it was very, very good. Like, one you'll find interesting, I'm sure, is, so we went over to Nyon, to UEFA headquarters for a week as part of it. But while we were out there, it was ourselves and 3 or 4 other different federations. They got one of the chief interviewers from Sky Sports to come, and basically we were given pretty much a workshop on how to deal with the media.
Okay.
But really how to deal with the media was, we were taught how to talk for 10 minutes without saying anything.
Well, that explains the last hour.
And we were then put in front of this guy who was, the Sky Sports presenter, and he tried to rattle your cage with a few awkward questions, and it was, could you kind of wrangle your way around it?
Isn't it?
I'd find that quite fun though as well. Like, it must be a bit of crack, just to kind of the long pauses and basically repeating yourself and stuff like that. I got to give you some credit for your Seamus Coleman interview as well. A lot of 99.9% of the times these interviews are very boring, but all of a sudden you actually, and it must have been almost like, wow, this is. Well, and it's funny when you're doing an interview and you're like, this is actually, there's something happening here. Like, because usually it's like, whatever, he goes through the motions, and then it's like he's having a pop of Keith Andrews.
Well, as much as I would like to take full credit, I think Seamus Coleman had something he wanted to get off his chest, and he was going to get it out there.
Actually, Dan McDonald was making that point as well during the week about Stephen Kenny, that Kenny'd be in a press conference and there'd be some banal question asked about who's available for the next game or something such, but Kenny will go in there intent on making reference to some particular player that he thought needed some sort of a G up in public, and he, in a very, it might be a bit of a kind of a cumbersome way, it might be a roundabout way, but he would make his point possibly in relation to a question that had nothing whatsoever to do with the player, but he uses the press conference for that particular reason.
It's very very similar to interviewing a politician. Effectively we're taught to just ignore what the question was. If you walk into a press conference or walk into an interview with, as you say, 3-4 points you want to get across, and don't really mind what question is actually asked, just start talking about the 3-4 things.
But did they flip it at any stage to what Johnny's talking about, and actually going in and taking control of a press conference and deciding what the message you want is? So even in the last couple of weeks, Mourinho was been asked about this, and who is he talking to during these press conferences? And he said, number 1, my players; number 2, my players; number 3, my players. That everything he says is aimed at getting a reaction inside the dressing room. Now, even that statement may be true. Well, there may be a deeper meaning to it. But did they not teach you, well, actually, if you're looking to get a point out there, that this is how you do it?
So, Mourinho's wrong there, and he knows he's wrong there when he's saying that, because it's not. But again, it's not the person, it's not the interviewer. You're not talking to the interviewer. He's right. You're talking to the players, but you're not only talking to the players. You're talking to your supporters. You're conscious of what way they're going to take on board the information you're given. Probably most important, you're talking to your board.
Right.
Talking to your board. When you ask a question, and particularly Mourinho is so conscious of that, when the reporter asks the question, he's given out an answer that is an awful lot of the time aimed at those up above him. You might be trying to rattle their cage, you might be trying to get them on side, but you're conscious that you're talking to your players, you're talking to supporters, you're talking to your boards, and you're trying to get the right balance of keeping everybody in their place.
And in terms of attitude, were you on the Brendan Rodgers end of the scale, where everything is fantastic? Are you on the Roy Hodgson end of the scale, where when he was a Liverpool manager, he spent his entire time trying to say that they were a very average mid-table club and anything we can achieve here is just fantastic?
No, definitely the Brendan Rodgers side, and I don't think Ollie Horgan will mind me saying he's the other side of that. Yeah, people, I'd be to one extreme, and then the likes of Ollie would be to another extreme, while both essentially maybe saying, wanting to say the same message. It's part of it is your human nature, really.
Yeah, I guess both of them are difficult, because if you're too positive, everyone just thinks you're a complete bullshitter.
Absolutely. When results aren't going your way, it's like having a horse with a trainer and he keeps telling you everything's great, but the results are rubbish. And you're like, the horse is no good. Is there little things like getting to know the journalists' first names as well? Because little things like that, because journalists kind of have egos as well, so they'll it's kind of like if I were ever a manager, I'd make sure my players knew the referee's name, because Shamey, what are you doing? Because just that'll play with them a little bit. So do you try things like that you address them by their first name, and that almost gets them a little bit on side, I think.
I don't even know if it's so much a case
you lost your job, you didn't do it.
I don't know if it's even so much a case of knowing their first name. I do think there's a lot to be said for treating them with respect. I think if you're willing to give your time a little bit and maybe give them a line or two that's usable, rather than saying absolutely nothing, as we were taught.
Stephen Kenny was amazing for that, particularly in the European run. He couldn't accommodate you more, and then I suppose there's how Benitez treats the press in the Northeast. He seems to have them completely on side just by his way of dealing with them. And there's an awful lot to be said for that, because I know this completely as a journalist. It's a total, and it's not professional to an extent,
but it's human nature.
If you get on exceptionally well with a trainer, you're less likely to criticise that trainer, and in racing we'll say, and in sport as well, it's kind of the same. Unfortunately, if you have a great relationship with the person, you're certainly in a difficult situation when and you're compromised a bit. Like maybe you're not doing your job, but it's human nature.
Yeah, Marty in Sligo texts in to say the best managers never had a badge, like Brian Clough, Shankly and Paisley.
But Brian Clough,
we're going back.
Now, obviously,
quite a while.
The Brian Clough thing, like Brian Clough, I mean, it's been brought up that O'Neill and obviously Roy, who both worked under him, have brought him up, and Clough's sort of, modus operandi is pretty redundant now. But Clough needed Taylor. Like Clough was not a particularly good manager without Taylor. He was a brilliant manager.
What were Clough's finest quotes, Johnny?
It's been a long day.
Come on, give us. The people need it. It's been a long day. There's been, people have been on tenterhooks with this presidential election. They just needed a bit of light entertainment. Give us your best, Brian Clough.
Nah.
Well, how would you describe this Liverpool performance?
Well, my favourite.
What would you think of Shane as a pundit?
My favourite Clough, and I don't know if this is to do with you, but it's like what happens when you disagree with the player, and he goes, "Well, we talk about it for 20 minutes, and he agrees I was right." And I thought that's just like, what a line, like, and his other one about like the English Channel and all that. But I have to say, like, Clough is overrated in terms of a lot of things, because his way of dealing with things was just like that great line about, if he thought about you hard enough, you'd look around on the pitch and look at him. His power of persuasion was that good, but it was man management. But he mightn't have been an amazingly good tactical coach. You don't know that.
Well, also, when we do our road shows and you have former Liverpool players who worked under Bob Paisley talking about him, it makes no sense how Liverpool were so successful. He was essentially a mute. He never said anything, ever, to anybody. But back in that era, respect was a given. It didn't have to be earned in a way. Because he was part of the boot room, everybody who came through understood the importance of this man, and the little quiet word here and there worked wonders. Whereas nowadays, you need the badge because you need to prove your credentials in every dressing room you go into.
Absolutely. And look, there's absolutely no point, and unfortunately we hear it a lot from Martin O'Neill referring back to previous eras, and Brian Clough and that. There's no point comparing current management to previous management. It's absolute chalk and cheese.
How would Fergie be nowadays? Like, if Fergie were managing Man United now, it's interesting, and that's notwithstanding obviously the fact that he's getting older and he's had some health issues. He might well be struggling now.
I think the last two great managers of their type are Fergie and Brian Cody. I think I don't think you're going to see a Fergie in football again. And I think when Cody's gone, I don't think you're going to see a Cody in hurling. And I think maybe even Cody's authority is not that it's beginning to wane, it's just that he would never ever have had people asking him questions as to why are we doing this before, whereas I think there might be a couple of players in that Kilkenny dressing room who now do that. And I think by and large that's it. The days of I say this and you all just take me at my word and are completely unquestioning, those days are
even
just
things
gone.
like WhatsApp groups. So like all the players will have their WhatsApp group, like, and
so whereas previously probably the only time the entire, say, 30-man squad or
in the dressing room
20-man was probably in the dressing room, and you had your spies in there, and you sort of had a good sense. Whereas now they all have their own WhatsApp group and are bitching and moaning about you constantly.
It was even like getting away from the point, but like there was obviously mad rumours about the Limerick Waterford game yesterday in terms of and the betting was suspended and all that. And all that stuff is basically completely accelerated by WhatsApp, because everything just goes completely out of control. A bit like obviously Wardgate in all that, but it's just a different ball game now, because of things like that.
Latest in the Pro 14, it's now Leinster 26, Benetton Treviso 3. That game in Italy, Adam Byrne and James Tracy with first half tries. Conor O'Brien added a third, his first senior try, and Andrew Porter has just crossed for the bonus point for Leinster. Let's go round the grounds in the Premier League, get the latest scores. Starting at Craven Cottage, Fulham against Bournemouth. It is Nigel Bidmead.
Fulham 0, Bournemouth 1. The visitors ahead on 14 through a penalty by Callum Wilson. It's been a quietest second half, enlivened only by a drive from Simon Francis. He had plenty of space on the edge of the area, caught it really well. Top class save from Sergio Rico. Fulham 0, Bournemouth 1.
Yeah, Fulham need to find a way back into that game. Let's go to St Mary's, Southampton against Newcastle. Alan Lewis.
Southampton 0, Newcastle United 0. Still a game desperately in need of a goal. Southampton best forward, deflected wide for a corner. John Joe Shelby has blasted a shot over the bar since half-time. Austin has had a good chance, chalked off for a foul on the Newcastle goalkeeper, and Nathan Redmond has forced a good save from Dubravka. It's Southampton 0, Newcastle 0.
And there's been a second goal at Anfield. Who's it gone to? Liverpool against Cardiff. Shane Pennington.
It's Liverpool 2, Cardiff 0, and Liverpool finally have that second goal that should kill this game now. It's come from Sadio Mane. He picked up the ball on the left-hand side of the penalty area from Roberto Firmino. He took one touch to take it past Manga and then fired low, hard across Etheridge into the right-hand bottom corner. It's Liverpool 2, Cardiff 0.
We're just adding a little bit of drama to it there, Johnny.
Yeah, in fairness, at least Mane got a lovely goal. Liverpool now are. This is where it could completely derail for Cardiff, and I guess all those guys who kind of want 3 or 4 goals for their accumulators in the game, they're getting hopeful now because Cardiff will know that the game is up. But the thing with Liverpool is, I was kind of slagging, maybe not slagging. I felt Salah was quite poor. Mane and Firmino haven't been all that good so far this season, but now you can just sense maybe they are going to click. And I still think it's a 2-horse race, being honest. Maybe I'm wrong. I couldn't see Arsenal be good enough.
Yeah, it's hard to see anybody going and finishing above Liverpool and Manchester City this season. So they're 2-0 up midway through the second half. Next up, we are going to the Amex Stadium, where last we heard it was going very well for Brighton against Wolves. Andrew Cheel.
Brighton 1, Wolves 0. It remains Glenn Murray's goal. The difference between the two sides, a simple side-foot pass after Wolves failed to deal with a free kick from the left. Wolves are not letting the grass grow under their feet, though. A double substitution just a minute ago. Diogo Jota and Ivan Cavallero replacing Traore and Jimenez. So they're making the best of their bench at the moment are Wolves. It's Brighton 1, Wolves 0.
And at Vicarage Road, it is Watford against Huddersfield. Mike Lawrence.
Watford 2, Huddersfield Town 0. That superb brace of goals in the first half from Roberto Pereira and Gerard Deulofeu, making it comfortable for the home side, and no doubt giving Huddersfield boss David Wagner plenty to think about in his half-time team talk, while Deulofeu had a chance to seal it at the start of the second half as Huddersfield keeper Jonas Lossell came running out. Deulofeu somehow missed an open goal. It remains Watford 2, Huddersfield 0.
Leinster 26-3 up against Benetton Treviso. A couple of scores in Gaelic games as well. The Wicklow Senior Football Championship final replay. It is Rathnew 8 points, St Patrick's 8 points. They're into the final minute of that one. And the Westmeath hurling final, it's half time, and it's Clonkill 1-9, Raharney 1-7 in that game. Second half has just started in that game. So in the Premier League, Liverpool leading by 2-0. They are going to top the Premier League table tonight, and of course Manchester City in second have a really tough game to come on Monday against Spurs. In the Championship, it's 1-1 between Birmingham and Sheffield Wednesday. Hull still 1-0 up away against Bolton. Bristol City 1-0 down at home against Stoke. Norwich lead Brentford by 1-0. Sheffield United now 4-1 up against Wigan. It's Swansea 1, Reading 0. West Brom still leading Blackburn by 1-0. Millwall 2-0 up against managerless Ipswich Town, and it is 1-1 now between Preston and Rotherham. Just want to remind you as well about our charity auction, which is all in aid of the Amanda Stapleton Fund. The big game takes place in Borrisoleigh and Tipperary next Saturday. It's the Amanda Stapleton benefit match. It'll see some legendary Tipperary and Kilkenny hurlers come back together to take to the field, and lots of current players involved as well. What we're auctioning off is a chance to be a full part of the day. You will tog out, you'll get a meet and greet with your heroes, you'll tog out with the county of your choice, you get a team photo, you get to march behind the pipe band behind either Tip or Kilkenny, all of that. It is when the legends return in Borrisoleigh next Saturday. We are at €300 in the bidding. If you want to top that, 53106 is the text number, or you can DM us on Twitter. We're going to take a very quick break.
Football on Off the Ball.
In association with the faster than ever Boyle Sports app. Multiples made easy and personalised content on every sport. Download it now. Boyle Sports. Time to play.
Tech Talk with Jess Kelly.
Coming up this week, we chat to some of the best brains in Irish business. Cubic Telecom will tell us how they connect cars for the likes of Volkswagen and Audi. Energy Exchange and Genesis Automation will outline how they can save organisations money, and we'll catch up with VR Education to find out how they're retelling history in the virtual world.
Tech Talk with Jess Kelly.
Thanks to Harvey Norman.
Download the podcast now or tune in Sunday at 6.
On News Talk.
You deserve a break, so wrap up and relax with the Sunday Independent this bank holiday weekend. It's finally over. Now the best writers tell you what the presidential election result really means. Plus, why there are 6 rural Irelands, the story scandalising New York society, and autumn comfort food. And for midterm, there's 2-for-1 entry to Halloween attractions. The Sunday Independent, the complete read.
Celebrate the bank holiday with Centra. we have great offers, like inspired by Centra Pizza range, any 2 for €8 or €5 each. Until Sunday, Carlsberg or Budweiser 12-pack cans, 2 for €20. And Coke Zero 8-can pack, 2 for €7 or €4 each. Centra, live every day. Enjoy cost sensibly.
Enjoy the taste of superior espressos, lattes and cappuccinos in the comfort of your own home with the DeLonghi Bean-to-Cup coffee machine. For more information, go online to powercity.ie or call in-store today.
Bruce Betting Sportsbook, Casino and now Live Casino. Download the Bruce Betting app to see why for the Premier League, Bruce Betting are giving you more. With price boosts, live in-play betting, cash out and ACCA insurance. Make Bruce Betting your Premier League bookmaker. Bruce Betting, in-store, online and now on your phone. Please gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
Weave your way along the wild Atlantic Way and feel the freedom of just being there. Whether you're captured by the unique beauty of Loop Head, the experience of savouring fresh local food from the Burren, or trying something new. Let go and embrace the Wild Atlantic Way of life. Plan your holiday now on the Wild Atlantic Way.
First man to walk on the moon. It'll be a hell of a ride.
First Man has critics rating 5 stars. It's a blockbuster that's out of this world. It's an extraordinary cinematic achievement. It will take your breath away.
Good luck.
From the director of La La Land, Ryan Gosling.
We have serious problems. We've got this under control.
Claire Foy.
You don't have anything under control.
It's the best movie of the year.
Do you think you're coming back?
First Man. In cinemas now. Certificate 12A.
There's a 0% chance of you winning the lotto without a ticket. And the odds on a summer without rain? Also 0. There's a 0% chance you're going to be discovered as a pop star singing in the shower. 0 hope gone off milk won't smell as bad the second time. There's a 0% chance of your keys being just where you left them.
Where are my keys?
And at Skoda, guess what great value starts at? Skoda. Simply clever. Terms and conditions apply. See skoda.ie.
I'm Alex Dunn from Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders. I have just returned from Yemen, where conflict has torn the country apart. It's also decimated the health system, leaving many in urgent need of care. MSF is treating the wounded and fighting disease on both sides of the front line. But we need your help. Please make an urgent donation today. Free phone 1-800-905-509. That's 1-800-905-509. Or visit msf.ie. Thank you.
Woodies are celebrating 30 years of homemaking with huge savings. Transform your home into a haunted house with all Halloween costumes and decorations, now half price. Or skip the scares and get Dulux 2.5 litre colours for just €20 and 5 litre colours for €35. 20% off all power tools and a €60 saving on the Triton T90 SR electric shower. Now €230. Woodies, we're all homemakers. T's and C's and exclusions apply.
That sound you almost don't notice anymore is coming from a vehicle weighing 30 tons. That's roughly the same as 6 fully grown African elephants. It could crush and kill you in an instant. Don't say you didn't see it coming. Last year, vehicles were the single biggest cause of death and injury in the workplace. As a business owner or manager, you're responsible. For advice on managing vehicle safety in your workplace, visit vehiclesatwork.ie. A message from the Health and Safety Authority.
Some bus routes in Dublin are now operated by Go Ahead Ireland on behalf of Transport for Ireland. So if you take the 184, 185, 111, 45A, 59, 63 or 75, keep an eye out for the new look buses. On board it'll be business as usual, with the same fares and TFI Leap Card, free travel pass, Dublin Bus Rambler, monthly and annual tax saver tickets, all valid on these services. For real-time service information, download our TFI Real-Time Ireland and Journey Planner apps. For more information, visit transportforireland.ie.
Football on Off the Ball.
In association with the faster than ever Boyle Sports app. Multiples made easy and personalised content on every sport. Download it now. Boyle Sports. Time to play.
Would you make it as a coach? You're just a bit too mad, are you?
It's going to be something of a revolution, I think. McElhinney and the ex-Sligo Rovers, I forget his name, Cove Ramblers, or Drogheda, or Athlone, or Longford.
You came on this show, Johnny, and said that Galway United were heading to the Champions League.
I didn't quite say that.
No, play the clip. Well, I think actually that was the opening weeks of Shane Keegan's reign as Galway United manager. You just got overexcited.
Yeah, the Saudis.
You said enough about them last week.
Yeah, in fairness, I don't think anyone in Galway is maybe all that upset at the moment that we don't have, we're not linked to Saudi Arabia at the moment. But hopefully the Comer brothers, who've been brilliant for the club, will help Galway United, because now Galway United, like all the other clubs, have to wait until mid-February, early March to have a game of football. So it's a preposterous state of affairs. Now, the clubs kind of, want this so that wages don't have to be paid, but the League of Ireland is bizarre, because, say in Irish racing at the moment, I was in Navan during the week for an 8-race card, and between each race, there was a 35-minute gap. So there was literally nobody there. I'd say about 10 people paid in, and that's partly the reason why SIS, which dominates in terms of the pictures, they dictated that it suits us in terms of our programme to have 35-minute gaps. It's a miserable experience to go racing when it's 8 race 35-minute gaps, because you're there for 4 hours from the first race to last with very little happening, very few people there. But the reason that happens is because the people who go to the game to the races, it doesn't really matter anymore. All the money is from TV. In the League of Ireland, basically, the money is, for most clubs, the money is gate receipts and very little else. And so there's no gate receipts for Galway United, and they were poor enough this season. So
it's pretty much the only league in the world that doesn't get any money from TV.
Which is great. So no money from TV and no money basically from the governing body, who in their wisdom have decided that they're going to snub the PFAI awards this year, not literally send one representative from the league or the FAI to the PFAI awards. They just think that the players who've basically done more to promote the game than they ever did or ever will in this country aren't worthy of some lad turning up for 10 minutes, wishing them the best and leaving Scarpering out the door.
Well, if they did that, you wouldn't be happy.
I think they'd be better showing their face. It's an absolute scandal, and I think it's a stupid diplomatic decision.
Did the PFAI actually want the FAI there, considering how,
of course,
the relationship is broken down to such an extent?
Why would it be in the PFAI's interest not to have a good relationship with the governing body in this country? And where is it going now if John Delaney does get, there's talk he's going to get another 5 or 6 years or whatever, and we have a situation where the League of Ireland champions get 110 grand for winning the league or something with no TV money. So anyway, this is the problem in the League of Ireland at the moment. It's very, very hard for, I think Stephen Henderson was on about this week. Galway United have basically no income whatsoever apart from the Comer brothers and gate receipts haven't been good this season. So it's really, really hard for the volunteers who are running the clubs when there's no money coming in.
And part of the problem, I guess, as well, is that Dundalk, the prize money isn't anywhere near what it should be, but they're getting the European money, which means when we're talking about players getting paid, Dundalk can probably go back the first week in January and all their players will be paid from the first week in January, and they can go back full-time training, where other clubs are thinking, well, if we can leave this till maybe the 1st of February, we can save a month's wages here and the lads can do their own stuff and we won't actually have to pay them.
Yeah, I'll say a couple of things on it, I suppose. First, I'd say on the TV, talking about the TV money. So we had, I think it was just this week announced, we had Vinny Flaherty with us last season at Galway United. Vinny's now out in Cyprus. And he was tweeting, I can't remember who he was corresponding with, he was talking to somebody on Twitter during the week and was saying that despite the fact that the average gates out there are only coming in at around 2,500, they get 12 million in TV money. I mean, that's
per club or divided?
12 million for the league.
Okay.
12 million for the league, which is, the 12 million coming into the Irish League would make such a difference. It'd be absolutely.
Even I was at the Bows game last night and Dundalk, and Bows performed marketing genius with the Bob Marley. Even they might even claim it's not Bob Marley for legal reasons. But anyway, it's a patently absurd jersey in my view. This second jersey next season, you've probably heard about this, but it's done incredible publicity. And I'm just thinking of the ingenious nature of promoting our game. But
it's up on screen there now for anyone watching on our social channels.
He played one gig in Dalymount Park. But anyway, they've very, very cleverly, through Daniel Lambert, they've very cleverly cottoned on to the fact that there is a kind of a counter sort of professional football culture there now, where people are a bit fed up with where the game is going and they like the experience. And I have a special feeling going to Dalymount Park. Even there last night, there's just such a great buzz, and you know that the players are on, you know, modest enough wages and they're doing it for the right reasons. But watching the game last night, there's some fantastic football. You know, there's some Patrick McElhinney, young Kirk at left back for Bows, you know, Keith Ward. It's just such an enjoyable game. But the people running our league, they just don't see it and they don't care. You know, if I'd love somebody to take over the league and who really believes in it, who has a bit of clout and can go to you know, a major sponsor and say, put this league where it should be. You know, there's so many ways that it can, you know, be attractive, as well as the fact that it's summer football when the Premier League, possibly our big rival in many ways, is quiet.
We'll come back to that in a second, Johnny, because there's been a goal in the Premier League match at Anfield between Liverpool and Cardiff. Shane Pennington.
It's Liverpool 2, Cardiff 1, and out of nowhere Cardiff back into this game courtesy of Callum Patterson. Down the right hand side it was Junior Hoylett who got to the byline. His cross took a deflection off Moreno and it fell nicely into the path of Patterson 6 yards out, who just diverted the ball beyond Liverpool goalkeeper Alisson Becker. It's Liverpool 2, Cardiff 1.
First goal Liverpool have conceded at Anfield in the Premier League since February, and it may make for a nervy finish. 7 minutes left, Liverpool 2, Cardiff 1. Remember, well, even a point would put Liverpool top, but really they need to be winning this game against Cardiff City. A second goal, and this will be crucial at Craven Cottage. Fulham against Bournemouth. Nigel Bidmead.
Fulham 0, Bournemouth 2. The visitors have hit the home side on the break. Fulham were enjoying a good spell of possession, but Bournemouth broke away. Ryan Fraser with a perfectly timed pass for David Brooks, and he slid it through the legs of the goalkeeper. Fulham 0, Bournemouth 2.
And there's just been actually a red card at Craven Cottage as well. Let's hear about it.
It just gets worse for Fulham. They've conceded a second goal to Bournemouth, expertly scored by David Brooks. Great pass from Ryan Fraser as Bournemouth played a superb counter-attack. Less than a minute later, Kevin McDonald shifted back to centre-back with a foul on Brooks. Straight red card. Fulham down to 10 men, and they're losing 2-0 to Bournemouth.
All right, so Bournemouth are going to go 6th, 20 points from 10 games. Liverpool, though, are going to go top because they've just scored again, and it was a brilliant team goal. Shaqiri with the finish in front of the Kop. Fabulous
what a goal. What a lovely goal. Salah just beautiful kind of outside of the foot and past the edge of the box, and Shaqiri's little kind of fake to shoot, first of all, basically makes it, just takes the defender away and slides it into the corner. I think he's a player that's... I was fascinated by the way Klopp managed him, because he's so much talent, and he obviously took him off at half time in the Southampton game for whatever reason. He certainly has an idea of how he wants to manage Shaqiri, because obviously there's a lot of talk that his tracking back wasn't that great, but he's such a talented player.
I just think in games like this at home at Anfield against teams in the bottom half, you start him in every game.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, the only question on that one was whether it was his first, second or third touch was the best. That's an absolutely brilliant goal. It's 3 touches the ball and each one was better than the next, so it was a fantastic finish.
Another goal at Vicarage Road, Watford against Huddersfield. Mike Lawrence.
Watford 3, Huddersfield Town 0. The aptly named Isaac Success sealing the win for Watford, as if it was in any doubt after those first half goals from Roberto Pereira and Gerard Deulofeu. It's Watford 3, Huddersfield 0.
Let's go to the late game then. It's Leicester City against West Ham United. Alan Tully will be watching this one. Alan, looking at the team news, it seems to be more about who's not going to be playing in the game than who is.
Yeah, you've been reading the newspapers, Nathan. Well done. Yeah, as far as Leicester's concerned, and the question all week has been, will Jamie Vardy play? You remember he went off at the Emirates on Monday night because he'd got a stomach upset. We're on social media yesterday. He was there saying, I'm fully fit and raring to go. Well, he doesn't start. Vardy is only on the bench. Okay. And Johnny Evans, bear in mind Wes Morgan's out as well, he's still suspended. Johnny Evans is dropped as well. He only starts on the bench. 4 changes. I know, 4 changes by Claude Puel. You could argue, you know, in many ways, he comes across as a bit of a soft character, but he's got to exert his influence, hasn't he, in the dressing room? And this is the problem Ranieri had the season after they won the championship, is that we were hearing tales of certain players within the dressing room wanting to control how Leicester played, and clearly one of those must have been Jamie Vardy. Well, of course, I don't know whether you've seen Leicester this season on TV or whatever, but they don't play to Vardy. He's got scraps this season, so it wouldn't surprise me if he's gone into the manager's room and say, look, you know, can't we play a different way? And the manager said, no, this is the way I play. And there's obviously something going on, isn't there, behind the scenes there. He's not dropped, he's on the bench, so I'm sure they'll bring him on if they need him. I think the other important team news though. This one for West Ham, and Hammers fans won't like this one. Marko Arnautovic is ill. If something has come on within the last 24 hours, he's not playing either. He's their talisman, isn't he? So Chicharito, or Javier Hernandez, if you like his full name, he'll play instead. Yarmolenko, of course, who's just developing into the Premier League. He had that awful Achilles injury last week. It's his second in his career, and by the looks of it, he's going to be out for the whole season.
Yeah, that's a bit of a disaster for West Ham, and the news that Marko Arnautovic is missing as well. Thanks a lot for that, Alan. Enjoy the game.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
So, 4-1 to Liverpool and another brilliant goal.
How can you not enjoy this? Just a couple of things. Mane got the ball quickly, played it to Salah. The first thing you'd notice then is the unbelievable pace of Mane running ahead of him. But what he did was then he faded to run left, bringing the defenders with him, then jinked right, ran into the centre, opening up a bit of space for Salah to play a simple ball through, and then dinked it over the keeper. But I think Liverpool fans, this isn't, in the overall scheme of things, this isn't an important game, but what's incredibly significant for me is that those forward players are clicking now, and I think going forward this is going to be a big couple of weeks for them, just clicking attackably, because I don't think they've really fully done that yet. They've been kind of winning games unimpressively. This was a lot more like it.
A goal and 2 assists then for Mo Salah in this match, and one of the criticisms and worries for Liverpool supporters over the opening few weeks of the season was that they were getting a little bit selfish.
Yeah, he's been absolutely brilliant there. A favourite phrase of footballers is know your players. In other words, know the strengths and weaknesses of your teammates. And Salah has gave a perfect example of knowing your player there when you look at Mane, because he's received the ball and he's thought, if I hold on to this long enough, he's just going to outsprint everybody. And even the pass he plays, you'd think to a normal player that's overhit, but he knows his player. He knows Mane is absolutely lightning, and he just puts enough on it to slide him in. It's an absolutely superb goal again.
So Liverpool 4-1 up entering the final minute. It's now Benetton Treviso 3, Leinster 31. He's just gone full time in that game. The final try came from Joe Tamain, so 5 tries for Leinster in that game over Italy. St. Pat's are the Wicklow Senior Football champions. They've beaten Rathnew by 10 points to 8 in their county final replay. Yet another goal at Craven Cottage. Fulham against Bournemouth. Nigel Bidmead.
It's Fulham 0, Bournemouth 3. Callum Wilson played in on his right foot. An emphatic finish from just inside the area. No chance for Sergio Rico. No chance for Fulham. It's Fulham 0, Bournemouth 3.
Callum Wilson's my first sub in my fantasy football team. I desperately need Eden Hazard's injury to force him out of the game against Burnley tomorrow, or else I'm going to be absolutely sickened. So what a win that is for Bournemouth, and what a story they're turning out to be as well.
Yeah, believe it or not, going back to licences again. I actually did my A licence with the IFA. I went up north and did my A licence up there, just partly because of the queue to get on the one down here, and partly just for a change of scenery and how it was done, see how it was done elsewhere. And Eddie was on my A licence.
Okay.
So he was. We had 2 managers who were doing very well at the time, Eddie Howe.
How many years ago was this?
Oh, it is A licence 6-7 years ago, thereabouts. Eddie was doing very well with Bournemouth the first time round. Remember, he headed off to Burnley then and then came back. So this is his first time round at Bournemouth. The 2 managers that were in the league at the time who were on that A licence were himself and Carl Robinson, was doing very, very well with the MK Dons at the time. I remember thinking that you would know they were both very impressive on the course, but they were very impressive in very, very, very different ways. Carl Robinson is the kind of fella who walks into a room and I am here, everybody pay attention to me, I'm Mr. Charisma, you know, and he just kind of takes over a room with
that
kind
look
of
about him, kind of.
He does, yeah, and he's got that kind of energy, you know, and swaz, I suppose, about him. Whereas
more divisive?
Oh, definitely, I'd say. Definitely. Whereas Eddie's approach was the exact opposite. He said very little, and even when he did open his mouth, he said it in a very low tone, but it was like everybody kind of shut up and leaned in to hear what Eddie was saying, because he just doesn't waste words. Everything that comes out of his mouth makes so much sense, and you literally you want to hear everything that he says. You know, they're very different characters, but both impressive. Eddie probably even more so.
And you look where he is now, managing a team 6th in the Premier League, and you both have the same qualification. Like, do you get bitterness about that,
or do you just bad accept company at the moment?
No, but I'm just wondering, like, when you look at how football goes. Obviously, he was going into that. He was already managing a team, and he'd had a very successful career as a player as well, at a decent enough level. Like, does that give you hope for the future as a manager, that actually, well, I've worked with him, I've trained alongside him, I've learned alongside him, that actually, there's not that much difference?
Yeah, no, look, and as you say, learning from him, and a lot of these courses as well, the big thing on these courses, Nathan, is networking. So it is, and getting to know fellas and that kind of thing, and as soon as I can find the time to make it happen, I'm probably going to get across for a week over there to watch them work. That would be very, very enjoyable. I did it last year with Preston.
Okay.
Because there were so many Irish guys over there, it was quite easy to build connections and head over there. And
was this with Alex Ray?
No, it wasn't. It might even have been the previous year, because it was Simon Grayson. Simon Grayson was over there, so he was at the time. Believe it or not, there was actually a guy from Kilkenny. I live kind of right on the Laois-Kilkenny border. There's a guy from Kilkenny, is very, very high up in the sports science department there. He's now gone to Burnley since. But yeah, you'd try and get in for a visit, kind of wherever you can, to try and pick things up as you're going along.
We were just chatting about the League of Ireland before we went through that glut of goals there, and we were talking about pre-season and the lack of prize money. We're saying you had a couple of points to raise.
Stephen McGuinness will probably be after me straight away for telling this one, but
he's a PFAI head.
Not this season, the previous season, I would have had two players in particular playing for me that I'd have a decent relationship with even now, David Cawley and Ronan Murray, and they still give me awful grief about the fact that I never told them they weren't going to get paid for pre-season. You couldn't. You weren't. It didn't come up in conversation. They never asked. I never said.
Well, hang on a sec now. It's not. This is like the old thing of when your girlfriend says you lied to me. It's like, I didn't. I just didn't say it to you. Yeah. So you knew, but you didn't say it.
No, just
that's
never.
the ethical quagmire you're in.
Well, sure, obviously they found out fairly quickly, and we came to a small kind of an arrangement that helped tide them over, I suppose. But these are the things that go on. You're just, as a manager, you're going to sit down with a player, and you're genuinely hoping that doesn't come up as a question.
Yeah, and it's also a balancing act then, because these are probably two of your better players who you really don't want to piss off.
Exactly, yeah. And that's why, as I say, we did manage to come to some form of arrangement. But I can tell you that's the kind of thing that pretty much every manager, you're going in, you're sitting down with a player and you're thinking, I need to be honest with him, but how honest do I need to be with him, and what kind of questions do I hope don't pop up?
History is written as well by obviously the winners, and Galway United last season, one of the best teams we've ever had, got relegated. And I think Shane, in hindsight, will say that we shouldn't have gotten relegated with the squad of players we had. But it was very, very fine margins, and 3 teams went down, and Galway United obviously went down on the last day. And if Galway United had stayed up, we'd have had a very good season this season, I think, in the Premier Division, because most of the players would have stayed. They liked the environment there, they liked living in Galway, and maybe would have even brought in a few more players. Instead, virtually every one of our best players left, and now we're languishing in the first division, and Shane lost his job.
And Shane's stuck here with us.
And I'm stuck here with you. But look, that's I mean,
it's just fine margins.
It is fine margins, because I know I'm giving a little bit of the poor me here, but I mean, it's almost unheard of. We went down last season with the 7th best goal difference in the division. We were unfortunate in a few different manners. The 3 going down, and the fact that we just didn't manage to turn performances into points. But look, that's it's peaks and troughs in this game, that's for sure, Nathan.
Let's go and get the full time from Anfield. Liverpool are top of the Premier League, watching their victory against Cardiff with Shane Pennington.
Liverpool 4, Cardiff 1, and Jurgen Klopp's side moved to the top of the Premier League, and least until Monday, as they barely got out of second gear to see off struggling Cardiff. Mo Salah fired them ahead early on before Sadio Mane made it 20 minutes into the second half. Callum Paterson then briefly gave the visitors hope before Liverpool sealed the 3 points when Xherdan Shaqiri and Sadio Mane both scored in the space of 3 late minutes to give the scoreline a more deserving look. Liverpool 4, Cardiff 1.
9 wins and a draw from Liverpool's opening 10 matches. They are 3 points clear of Manchester City ahead of City's game at Spurs on Monday night. Next up, we're off to Craven Cottage, where the pressure now is huge on their manager because Fulham have been beaten again. Watching their match with Bournemouth was Nigel Bidmead.
Fulham 0, Bournemouth 3, a 4th consecutive defeat for 10-man Fulham. Bournemouth took an early lead when Callum Wilson was fouled by Timothy Fosu-Mensah. Wilson slotted home his 4th of the season from the penalty spot. Fulham had a good spell in the second half, but that ended when Ryan Fraser broke away and played in David Brooks, who nutmegged the keeper. A minute later, Fulham were reduced to 10 men when Kevin McDonald fouled Brooks and was shown a second yellow card. Wilson added a third late on with an emphatic finish. Fulham 0, Bournemouth 3.
Next, we're off to Vicarage Road. Watford against a pretty beleaguered Huddersfield. Mike Lawrence.
Watford 3, Huddersfield 0. Back-to-back wins now for Javi Gracia's side as they return to early season form. The home side got the job done in the first 20 minutes, in all honesty, with superb solo goals from Roberto Pereira and Gerard Deulofeu, which left the visitors struggling to find a response. Chris Love did hit the crossbar for the visitors, and Watford had to wait until 10 minutes from time to make it really comfortable with Isaac Success's close-range strike. Watford 3, Huddersfield 0.
Just as we're waiting for the other full-times to come in, the full-times from the Championship, where Sheffield United are now top after a 4-2 win against Reading. Middlesbrough in second drew 1-1 with Derby earlier today. It is finished Swansea 2, Reading 0. They're in injury time in the other games. Birmingham 3-1 up against Sheffield Wednesday. It's Bolton 0, Hull 1. Stoke still leading Bristol City by a goal to 0. Norwich 1 up against Brentford. It's 1-1 now between West Brom and Blackburn. Millwall 3-0 up against Ipswich, and it's Preston 1, Rotherham 1. The late game should be a tasty one at 5:30. It is Leeds United against Nottingham Forest. Full time in from the Amex. Brighton against Wolves. Andrew Cheel.
Brighton 1, Wolves 0. Glenn Murray underlined his importance to Brighton with the only goal of the game just after the break. A really well controlled right foot side footer from about 12 yards out. Earlier, Lewis Duncan headed wide for Brighton when scoring looked easier. Wolves, the better side, almost threw out. Doherty wasted one really good chance in the first half, had 2 more deflected off defenders after the break, as did the impressive Neves. Brighton just held out at the end. It finished Brighton 1, Wolves 0.
The other game in the Premier League finished scoreless between Southampton and Newcastle. That's us pretty much done for today, because we have another election special coming up very shortly. We're back on air tomorrow, though, full show from 1 o'clock all the way through till 6. Declan Lynch and David Snade will be alongside Neil for the paper review. That will be on podcast and all our social channels from 11:30, because we have a double header of live Premier League action. It's Palace against Arsenal from 1:30. Gary Breen and Bernard O'Toole at that, and then myself and Brian Carroll will be at Old Trafford for Manchester United against Everton. Shane, Johnny, thank you as always. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Good luck.